Sunday morning on a quiet tributary of the Batanghari River. But there are no Sundays for the fishermen, no days on which they don't cast their nets. Things are different in Jambi, the provincial capital in the heart of Sumatra. Banks, offices and most businesses are closed. The traffic on the streets is almost sluggish in comparison with other days. In Indonesia, as in many parts of the world, the weekend is more of a time for the family than for work. However, this isn't true of Talangduku, Jambi's industrial harbour. A barge has arrived in the night, and the skipper wants to dock and unload his cargo straight away. The dockers are used to this now, with barges like this arriving every couple of days, and each one is loaded with hundreds of large black pipes. Things are just as busy in the nearby office containers. Spare tires become a thing of the past for most of the international team that work here. A team made up of Indonesians, Germans, Dutch and colleagues from 7 further countries. Whether they're here or scattered along hundreds of kilometers out on a construction site, these people work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week. In order to meet their common goal, the employees of the MPCC joint operation must push themselves to their limit, and their goal is to get Indonesia's biggest pipeline finished on schedule.
It's hard to imagine what we would have done without the chopper. We used it almost every day to quickly move construction supervisors and experts to where they were needed, to transport urgently required spare parts, and to make routine checks on the progress of the project. When you are faced with a construction site that is 540 kilometers long, a road system that limits you to an average speed of 40 kilometers an hour, and a telecommunication system that is largely based on radio traffic, a helicopter is simply essential. The first flights were the most exciting, because up till then, all we knew about the project was what we had read. What would be in store for us? What sort of terrain? What technical problems would confront us? We encountered everything we were expecting, and even more. Forests, swamp, never-ending plantations, paddy fields and magnitudes of rivers, flat and undulating countryside, densely populated areas, and jungles that appeared to be almost virgin. The planned route of the pipeline was in the border area between the foothills of the volcanic mountain range in the west of Sumatra and the swampy region that extends towards the Strait of Malacca in the east.
The pipe starts at the natural gas reserves in the south of the island, at the Asamera Corridor Block Gas Plant, a gas processing station near Gezik. At the other end are the oil fields of Caltex Pacific Indonesia near Duri. The oil produced here has a high viscosity, and it has to be pumped with the aid of steam injection. Gezik and Duri are separated by the equator, 5 major rivers, and 540 kilometers, equivalent to the distance between Berlin and Amsterdam. This means that the gas project is in fact an oil project. The injection steam that is needed to pump the oil out of the ground at Duri will be produced by burning natural gas instead of crude oil. This will save 6,000 tons of crude oil with a value of about 1 million Deutschmarks every day. Oil which can then be exported as a contribution to Indonesia's foreign trade.
For us, it was also a kind of water project. Water, whether standing, flowing or falling from the skies, affected our work time after time. It also played a role in transporting the pipes. The rivers meant that it was possible to ship the material deep into the interior of the country and as close as possible to the construction site.
Wherever possible, existing dock facilities were used to land the pipes, for example here at Batanghari near Jambi. However, on other rivers, these landing facilities first had to be built. The pipeline was made of some 45,000 spirally welded polyethylene-coated pipes, most of which were 12 meters long. They were 28 inches in diameter, and the wall thickness varied between 8.7 and 12.7 millimeters. The pipes were manufactured in Indonesia. and were supplied by the project organizer and operator of the pipeline, the state-owned Perusahaan Gas Negara, PGN. The pipes had already been to sea twice before they arrived here. They were manufactured by Krakatau Steel in Java before being sent to Batam Island near Singapore to have the polyethylene coating applied. They were then sent back across the Strait Malacca in 6 slots to Sumatra's big rivers. Altogether, 90 barges like this one had to be unloaded in the course of the project. The construction of the pipeline was given the go-ahead on New Year's Day 1997. Just 10 weeks later, the tasks of planning, procurement of materials and preparation had reached a stage where the bulldozers and excavators could be dispatched into the country. The local workforce and technology were used extensively in all stages of the project. The cooperation between the partners was based on a simple principle. The European companies took on only those tasks that the Indonesian partners could not, or not yet, complete using their own resources. The special equipment and about half of the construction vehicles came from Europe. But more important was the combined experience of Indonesia and Europe. On the Indonesian side, CPM, Rabana, Nindya Karya, companies that have been involved in the Indonesian oil industry. And on the European side, Mannesmann Demag and Nakam, companies that have constructed pipelines in all parts of the world for many years. No two projects are the same, and you always learn something new. For example, the amount of earthwork in Sumatra had initially been underestimated. Long stretches of the hilly terrain went up and down endlessly like a washboard, making it necessary to move 3 times more earth than originally estimated. A Sunday on the road.
35 trucks were on the road every day for months on end, transporting thousands of pipes from the loading facilities at the docks to stockpiles. Sometimes the trip was just 20 kilometers, but sometimes it was as long as 120. We may have looked like kings of the road, but we certainly didn't feel like it. The streets and roads were full of blind corners and crests, and the multitude of pedestrians, bicycles, motorbikes, cars and trucks, not to mention chickens, cows, goats and broken down vehicles, didn't make driving any easier. However, transporting the pipes was easy in comparison. All of the cumbersome construction equipment had to be taken to where it was needed on flatbed trucks, unloaded, subsequently reloaded, and then moved on to its next location. The obstacles we faced included narrow roads in towns and villages, limited clearance heights, and bridges and ferries with insufficient load carrying capacity, all of which complicated the logistics of the project. You certainly know what you've done once you've driven your 300 kilometers or more in a day.
The pipe transports ended at the 100 or so stockpiles that had been set up every couple of kilometers along the whole route. This was in order to reduce the much slower and more problematic transport of the pipes on the route itself to an absolute minimum. When a pipeline is built, each individual pipe unavoidably has to be lifted and put back down a number of times. But it's vitally important that the pipes are handled extremely carefully to prevent them being damaged. To this end, modern vacuum lifting equipment that had been shipped from Europe was used whenever possible.